The scream echoed through the grand marble halls of the mansion like a siren sharp enough to stop even the billionaire in his tracks. Amara clutched the hem of her uniform skirt as her bare feet slapped against the polished tiles. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. Something had scurried past her toes while she was sweeping the servants' quarters, a gray, furry blur with a tail long enough to make her throat dry. A rat. The mere thought made her skin crawl. She didn't think, she just ran, her mop clattering to the floor behind her, her broom rolling into a corner. Every instinct in her body screamed for escape. She wasn't sure where her legs carried her until she burst through a tall mahogany door, too desperate to care. And then she froze. The sound of rushing water filled the room. Steam clung to the mirrors, swirling in lazy waves around the chandeliers. The scent of sandalwood soap lingered in the air, and there, half hidden behind a glass panel, was the billionaire himself. Dante King. Tall, broad-shouldered, skin glistening with droplets of water that slid slowly down the ridges of his chest. His black hair clung wet to his forehead and his jawline was sharp enough to cut glass. For a terrifying moment, Amara forgot how to breathe. She had barged into the wrong place, the wrong room, the wrong man. Who the hell? Dante's voice boomed, thick and commanding, stopping her in her tracks. Amara's eyes widened, words failed her. She wanted to explain, but her mouth wouldn't cooperate. All she could do was stare, heat rushing up her neck to her ears. He took a step closer, the steam swirling around his frame like a crown. You're the new maid, aren't you? Amara nodded too quickly, her throat dry. She wanted to turn and run, but her body felt cemented to the spot. A rat, she stammered finally. I saw a rat. For a second, silence stretched between them, then Dante's lips curved into something dangerously close to a smirk. You saw a rat, he repeated, his deep voice teasing. Yes, sir, I hate them, she blurted, her fingers fidgeting with her apron. And that made you think my bathroom was a safe haven. Her embarrassment burned so hot she wished the tiled floor would swallow her whole. But Dante didn't seem angry, amused maybe, curious definitely. He folded his arms across his bare chest, droplets of water sliding down his biceps. Amara's eyes betrayed her, darting to follow their path before she could stop herself. He noticed. Do you like what you see? His voice was lower now, more intimate, as though daring her to answer. Her heart stuttered. No, I mean yes, I didn't mean to look, sir. The smirk deepened. Amara stumbled back, but her heel caught on the marble floor. She lost balance, and before she knew it, she was falling forward. Dante moved swiftly, one strong arm shooting out to catch her. Her palms pressed against his chest, warm, solid, and far too close. Time seemed to pause. She could hear nothing but the sound of their breathing and the slow drip of water from his wet hair. Her eyes met his. For the first time since she started working in his mansion, Amara saw something in his gaze that wasn't cold, distant wealth. No, there was something else, a spark, something alive. Her pulse quickened and her lips parted slightly, though no words came out. And then, just as suddenly, he set her back on her feet. You should leave, Dante said, his tone clipped now, but his eyes lingered on her face longer than necessary. Yes, sir, Amara whispered, her voice shaky. She turned on her heel and fled the bathroom, pressing her back to the closed door outside as though it could erase what just happened. Her skin tingled where his hands had held her. Her heart refused to slow. She had made the biggest mistake of her life, or maybe the beginning of something far more dangerous. Because in that brief stolen moment, Amara had seen it. The billionaire's eyes weren't just curious, they were hungry. If you've watched up to this point, kindly hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our interesting stories. Also, don't forget to drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. We love hearing from you. As Amara walked back down the hallway, still trembling, she thought she was finally safe. But what she didn't know was that Dante King couldn't get her out of his mind either. And for a man who always got what he wanted, that was dangerous. Amara didn't sleep that night. No matter how tightly she closed her eyes or how hard she pressed her face into the pillow, her mind replayed the same scene again and again. His arm catching her, his chest warm beneath her palms, the scent of sandalwood and clean water still clinging to her senses. She groaned softly and buried her face deeper, but it didn't help. How was she supposed to survive in that mansion now, pretending nothing had happened when the very air around her seemed to hum with the memory of Dante King's touch? The morning came too soon. The mansion buzzed with activity, maids dusting, gardeners clipping hedges, chefs preparing breakfast in the expansive kitchen. Amara did her chores quietly, trying to avoid any chance of bumping into her employer. But fate had other plans. Amara, a voice called smooth and commanding. She froze, the silver tray in her hand trembling just slightly. Slowly, she turned. Dante stood at the far end of the dining hall, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit that hugged his broad frame perfectly. His dark hair was slicked back, his jaw freshly shaven, his very presence enough to make the air feel heavier. "Yes, sir," she managed, clutching the tray like a shield. "Bring the coffee to my study." Her stomach knotted. Of all the maids, he had chosen her. "Yes, sir," she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. The study was a massive room lined with shelves of books that smelled faintly of old paper and leather. Sunlight poured through tall windows, casting long shadows across the mahogany desk where Dante sat. He looked up as she entered, his sharp eyes locking onto her like a hawk's. She set the tray carefully on the desk, her hands shaking. "Careful," he said, his tone low but laced with amusement. "Wouldn't want another accident." Heat crept up her cheeks, he remembered. "Yes, sir," she said again, staring down at the polished surface of the desk. He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "So, rats terrify you that much?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Ever since I was a child, sir, I can't even look at them." He chuckled softly, a deep, rich sound that made her toes curl inside her shoes. "Interesting, you'd rather risk barging in on me than face a rat." Her throat tightened. I wasn't thinking, sir, I just ran." Dante's eyes darkened slightly, though a smile played at the corners of his lips. Honest." Amara swallowed hard, unsure what to say. The silence stretched thick and charged until finally she blurted, "It won't happen again, sir." His gaze lingered on her longer than it should have. "I'm not sure I believe you." Her breath caught. Before she could respond, the door creaked open and another maid slipped in carrying a stack of papers. "Sir, these just came for you." The moment shattered. Dante took the papers, dismissed the maid, and returned his attention to his coffee. Amara fled the study as quickly as her legs could carry her, her heart hammering against her ribs. That night, the mansion was quiet. Most of the staff had retreated to their quarters and the vast halls glowed softly under golden sconces. Amara tiptoed down the corridor, her arms full of freshly laundered linens. She didn't realize Dante was watching. From the shadows of the balcony above, he leaned against the railing, one hand in his pocket, his eyes following her every move. Something about her, her innocence, her nervousness, the way her lips trembled when she spoke, had lodged itself in his mind. He had women before, beautiful ones, models, actresses, socialites who practically threw themselves at him, but none of them stirred his curiosity the way this maid did. She wasn't trying to impress him, wasn't chasing his wealth. If anything, she seemed desperate to stay invisible. And that made her unforgettable. "Amara," he called suddenly, his voice echoing through the corridor. She jumped, nearly dropping the linens. "Sir. Come here." Her feet moved before her brain caught up. Slowly, she approached the staircase where he stood, her eyes darting everywhere but his. "Yes, sir. Walk with me." Her brows furrowed in confusion, but she nodded. He descended the staircase with the quiet grace of someone used to commanding spaces, and together they strolled through the silent halls. Their footsteps echoed in rhythm, filling the otherwise empty air. Finally, they stopped at the glass doors leading to the mansion's private garden. Moonlight spilled across the marble floor, painting everything silver. Dante opened the door and gestured for her to step outside. The garden was breathtaking, roses climbing trellises, a fountain bubbling in the center, night-blooming flowers releasing their sweet perfume into the cool air. "It's beautiful," Amara whispered before she could stop herself. Dante's eyes flicked to her, amused. "You've never been out here?" She shook her head. "No, sir, the staff usually stays indoors." "Rules can bend," he said simply, his gaze intense. Her pulse skipped. Was this a test, a trap? She couldn't read him. They walked in silence until they reached the fountain. The soft gurgle of water filled the space between them. Dante stopped, turned, and fixed her with a look so piercing she felt rooted to the spot. "You're afraid of rats," he said, almost teasing, "but not of me." Her lips parted, words failing her. Should she admit the truth, that he terrified her in ways no rat ever could, because he made her feel things she wasn't supposed to feel? "I don't know," she whispered. For a moment he just studied her, then slowly, deliberately, he stepped closer, one step, then another. Her breath hitched as the distance between them vanished. She could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, the shadow of stubble along his sharp jaw, the way his lips curved ever so slightly. "Good answer," he murmured. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure he could hear it. But before anything more could happen, a sudden noise shattered the moment, the rustle of footsteps from the mansion. Another servant appeared at the far end of the garden, carrying a basket. Dante pulled back instantly, his expression unreadable. "Go," he said quietly, his voice once again that of a billionaire issuing commands. Amara obeyed, her cheeks burning as she scurried back inside. But long after she disappeared into the shadows, Dante remained by the fountain, his hands clenched behind his back. What was it about her? Why couldn't he shake the image of her wide, frightened eyes, her lips trembling as though begging to be kissed? He exhaled sharply, forcing himself to turn back toward the mansion, but he knew the truth. The maid had stumbled into his bathroom by accident. Into his life by chance. But she wasn't leaving his thoughts anytime soon. Amara's heart was restless all night again. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Dante's face in the moonlight, those sharp eyes, that dangerous smirk, the way his voice dipped low enough to curl heat deep inside her stomach. She tried to convince herself it was nothing, that he was just her boss, a man completely out of her league, but her body betrayed her. Every nerve in her skin hummed when she thought about him. By morning she resolved to avoid him, it was safer that way. But the mansion had its own way of trapping her. That afternoon, Amara carried a basket of fresh towels toward the guest wing. She hummed softly to herself, trying to stay calm when the lights flickered. She frowned, glancing at the ceiling. The mansion rarely had electrical issues, but the sudden dimness made the hallway eerie. She quickened her pace, but just as she turned the corner, a sound froze her in place. Squeak! Her blood ran cold. Another squeak followed, louder this time. She glanced down just in time to see it, another rat darting across the corridor, its tail dragging like a whip. Amara let out a terrified gasp, dropping the basket. Towels spilled everywhere as she bolted down the hall without thinking. Her feet pounded against the marble floor until she stumbled through the first door she saw. She slammed it shut behind her, pressing her back against the wood. Her breath came fast and shallow. And then she realized. The air smelled of sandalwood again. The room was warm, humid, the faint mist of steam still clinging to the tiled walls. She had run into his bathroom again. Before she could retreat, the sound of water stopped. The glass shower door slid open. Dante stepped out, a towel hanging low around his waist, droplets tracing the ridges of his abs down to where the fabric began. Amara's legs nearly gave out. "You," he said, his tone half amusement, half warning, "again." I didn't mean," she stammered, her eyes fixed on the floor. There was another rat. Dante tilted his head, studying her. "Interesting how you always end up here when you're scared." Her lips trembled. "It's a coincidence." "Is it?" he murmured, stepping closer. His wet skin glistened under the soft bathroom lights, and Amara's breath caught as he closed the distance between them. She took a shaky step back, but her back hit the wall. Dante's hand lifted, brushing her chin with the lightest touch, forcing her gaze upward. "Tell me," he said softly, his eyes searching hers, "are you afraid of me?" Her heart thundered in her chest, yes and no. His lips curved, "Good answer." For a moment, silence hung thick between them, broken only by the dripping water. Dante's thumb brushed the corner of her lips and she shivered. "You keep running into my space, Amara," he said, his voice low, commanding. "Why?" She swallowed hard. "I swear I didn't plan this." "Maybe not," he said, "but maybe you wanted to." Her breath hitched. "Sir, I." "Dante," he corrected, "say my name." Her lips parted. "Da-nte." The sound of it seemed to please him. His smirk deepened, his eyes darkening as he leaned closer. The space between them shrank until she could feel his breath against her cheek, hot and teasing. Her body screamed at her to move, but she was frozen in place, caught between fear and desire. "You should leave," he whispered, though his hand slid to her waist, contradicting his words. "I can't," she whispered back, surprising even herself. That broke something inside him. His lips crashed against hers, firm and demanding, stealing her breath. Amara gasped, her hands instinctively clutching at his damp skin. The kiss was fire, hungry, desperate, as though he'd been holding back for too long. She melted into him, her mind spinning. The scent of him, the taste of his mouth, the solid weight of his body pressed against hers, it was overwhelming, intoxicating. Dante deepened the kiss, one hand tangling in her hair, the other pressing firmly against the small of her back, pulling her closer. She moaned softly into his mouth, and the sound seemed to ignite something wild in him. "You have no idea what you do to me," he murmured against her lips, his voice rough. Amara's knees trembled, her fingers digging into his shoulders as though he were the only thing keeping her upright. She should stop this. She knew she should, but every rational thought was drowned out by the way his lips trailed down her neck, leaving heat in their wake. "Dante," she whispered, her voice shaking. He pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. His own were dark, burning with something primal. "Say it again." "Dante," she breathed. He groaned softly, pressing his forehead to hers. "If I start, I won't stop." Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. "Then don't stop." Time blurred, the world outside that bathroom ceased to exist. For that stolen stretch of eternity, there was only the sound of their breaths, the taste of his lips, the shiver of her body as he held her like she was the only thing that mattered. When finally the storm quieted, Amara found herself in his arms, her head resting against his chest. His heartbeat was steady beneath her ear, grounding her in a way nothing else ever had. Silence lingered, heavy and fragile. Then Dante spoke, his voice softer than she had ever heard it. "You've complicated everything." Amara froze. "I'm sorry, sir. I mean, Dante, I didn't mean." He silenced her with a finger against her lips. "Don't apologize, just understand, this isn't supposed to happen." Her chest tightened, she nodded though her heart ached. He tilted her chin up again, forcing her to meet his gaze. "But I don't regret it." Her lips parted, but words failed her. All she could do was stare into his eyes and see the truth reflected there. He wanted her. Dangerously so. Later, when Amara slipped quietly out of the bathroom, her uniform wrinkled, her lips still tingling, she knew her world had changed forever. The billionaire wasn't just her employer anymore. He was temptation. He was danger. He was the secret she couldn't hide. And as she walked down the silent hallway, her hands trembling, she realized something terrifying. She didn't want to hide. If you've stayed with us till now, hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on our next story. It's only getting hotter from here. Don't forget to comment where you're watching from. We love seeing all of you from across the world.